What if I told you that the reason you feel different when speaking English has nothing to do with your language skills? What if the loneliness you experience in English conversations is not about vocabulary or grammar, but about something much deeper inside your brain? Welcome to Coffee English. I'm here to share something that might sound impossible but is backed by solid science. Today we're diving into one of the most overlooked challenges in language learning: the emotional disconnection that happens when you switch from your native language to English. This feeling has a name, it has causes, and most importantly, it has solutions. By the end of this episode, you'll understand why your English-speaking self feels like a stranger sometimes. You'll learn practical ways to bridge the gap between who you are in your native language and who you become in English. And you'll discover that this challenge is actually a hidden superpower waiting to be unlocked. If this resonates with your experience, I'd love to hear your story in the comments. Your journey might inspire someone else who's feeling lost between languages right now. Let me start with a simple experiment. Right now, think about your last conversation in English with a native speaker. How did you feel? Confident? Nervous? Now think about your last conversation in your native language with a close friend. Feel the difference. Here's what researchers discovered when they studied this exact phenomenon. People actually answer personality tests differently when they take them in different languages. They show more social confidence and friendliness when answering in English compared to their native language. Your brain literally creates different versions of you for each language. This isn't in your imagination. Scientists call it switching between cultural mindsets, and it happens to every person who learns a second language. But here's the part they don't tell you in textbooks: this psychological shift can create a profound sense of isolation, even when you're surrounded by English speakers. When you speak English, your brain doesn't just translate words. It shifts your entire emotional and social framework. Research shows that learning a foreign language can alter personality traits, offering individuals new ways to express themselves and perceive the world. But with this change comes an unexpected side effect: the feeling that your authentic self gets buried under foreign words. Think of it like this. In your native language, you have access to subtle humor, cultural references, emotional nuances that took decades to develop. You can be sarcastic, playful, deeply serious, or mysteriously vague. In English, you might find yourself using simpler expressions, more direct communication, less emotional coloring. It's like having a full palette of colors in your native language and only primary colors in English. This creates what experts call feeling split in your identity. You start to feel like English you is a less interesting, simpler version of native language you. And this feeling, it's incredibly lonely. The research reveals something striking about this experience. People can actually notice a change in themselves as they switch from one language to another, with each language making its speakers perceive reality in a different way. When you speak English, you're not just using different words, you're accessing different emotions, different ways of thinking, different aspects of your personality. But here's where it gets challenging. Your English-speaking environment expects you to be fully present, fully authentic. Your colleagues want to know the real you. Your friends want deeper conversations. Your romantic partner wants emotional intimacy. And you're trying to deliver all of this through what feels like a limited, foreign version of yourself. This creates a painful paradox. The better your English gets, the more opportunities you have for meaningful connections. But the more meaningful the connection should be, the more you feel the gap between your authentic self and your English-speaking self. Let's talk about why English specifically can feel so isolating. English is often learned in formal, academic settings. You learn to be polite, grammatically correct, professionally appropriate. These are valuable skills, but they can create an English-speaking persona that feels stiff, over-formal, or emotionally distant. In your native language, you learn to communicate by absorbing thousands of hours of natural, emotional, messy human interaction. You developed your sense of humor through playground jokes and family dinner conversations. You learn to express love, anger, frustration, and joy through real relationships with real emotional stakes. In English, many learners develop what I call textbook personality: polite, correct, but emotionally flat. And when you try to have real human connections with this textbook personality, the result is profound loneliness. Here's something interesting that happens in your brain when you speak English. The emotional parts that work with language in your native language don't work as strongly when you speak your second language. It's like trying to paint a sunset with only half your emotional vocabulary available. This creates a gap between what you want to express and what you actually can express. You have deep thoughts, complex feelings, interesting stories, but they come out simplified in English. Your conversation partner sees this simplified version and responds to it, not to the rich, complex person you actually are. Over time, this pattern reinforces itself. You start to believe that your English-speaking relationships are naturally more superficial. You accept that meaningful connections happen in your native language, and English is just for work, travel, or basic social interaction. The first step to solving this problem is understanding that your English-speaking self is not a broken version of your native-speaking self. It's a different person entirely, with different strengths, different ways of connecting, different emotional patterns. Studies show that learning a foreign language can actually help people express themselves in new ways and see the world differently. This means your English identity might help you discover parts of yourself that were hard to express in your native language. Many successful bilingual speakers report that they feel more confident, more direct, more professionally capable in English. Others find they can express certain emotions more easily in their second language. The key is to stop seeing English you as inferior and start seeing English you as different. So how do you bridge this gap? How do you bring more of your authentic self into your English communications? First, start treating your English-speaking relationships as separate but equally valid. Stop comparing every English conversation to conversations in your native language. Instead, focus on developing emotional vocabulary in English. Learn how to express subtle feelings, personal preferences, complex opinions in English. Second, allow yourself to be imperfect in English while being emotionally authentic. It's better to use simple words to express genuine feelings than to use complex grammar to say nothing important. Your connection with others depends much more on emotional authenticity than on grammatical perfection. Third, actively seek English-speaking relationships where depth is valued over linguistic perfection. Join communities focused on shared interests rather than language exchange. When you connect over music, art, philosophy, sports, or social causes, the emotional connection can develop naturally while your English improves. The goal is not to make your English self identical to your native language self. The goal is to make both versions of you feel equally authentic and connected to your core identity. Think of it like this. You probably act differently at work than you do with your family, differently with your romantic partner than with casual friends. These aren't fake versions of you, they're different aspects of the same authentic person, activated by different contexts. Your English-speaking self can be the same way. A genuine aspect of who you are, activated by the English language context, but connected to the same core values, humor, intelligence, and emotional depth that defines you in your native language. Today's phrase comes from the world of psychology, and it perfectly captures what we've been discussing. Lost in translation, but we're going to flip its meaning. Usually, when something is lost in translation, we think of it as a failure, a loss of meaning when moving from one language to another. But what if being lost in translation actually means being free to discover new parts of yourself? When you're lost, you're not on the familiar path anymore. You're in unknown territory where new discoveries become possible. Maybe your English self isn't a diminished version of your native language self. Maybe it's an expanded version, with access to different ways of thinking, feeling, and connecting with others. So the next time you feel lost in translation, remember that some of the most beautiful discoveries happen when we're off the familiar path. We've covered a lot of ground today. We've seen that the loneliness you might feel when speaking English is real, scientifically documented, and completely normal. We've explored how language shapes personality and why your English-speaking self might feel like a stranger. Most importantly, we've discovered that this challenge is also an opportunity. Your bilingual brain gives you access to different ways of being human. Different emotional patterns, different social skills, different ways of solving problems, and connecting with others. Here's your challenge for this week. In your next English conversation, instead of trying to translate your native language personality into English, try to discover what your English personality naturally wants to express. What thoughts, feelings, or ideas feel easier to share in English than in your native language? Pay attention to moments when your English self surprises you, when you express something more directly, more clearly, or more confidently than you expected. These moments are glimpses of your authentic English identity breaking through. Language learning is ultimately about building bridges between different ways of being human. The loneliness you sometimes feel when speaking English is not a sign that you're failing at language learning. It's a sign that you're succeeding at something much more complex and beautiful, becoming a bridge between cultures, between ways of thinking, between different aspects of human experience. Your English-speaking relationships might be different from your native language relationships, but different doesn't mean less valuable. They're opportunities to explore different parts of yourself, to connect with people in ways that wouldn't be possible in your native language. Remember, every time you speak English, you're not just practicing a language. You're practicing being a more complete version of yourself. And that's worth celebrating, even when it feels lonely sometimes. This has been Coffee English. Keep brewing your language skills, and remember, your authentic self exists in every language you speak. Sometimes it just takes time to find the right words to let it shine through.